Today I'm going to give you a tour of Visual Basic 2010 Express Edition, and then we're going to write our first program. So let's get started. Well, if you watched the last video, you learned how to install and open Visual Basic 2010 Express. So I'm going to assume you've already got this open. And your window should look pretty much like this. You probably won't have this here that says Hello World until you get done with this video. But you should have New Project, Open Project, some sort of quick start data. This can change depending on what Microsoft's got going on, and some toolbars and menus to look at up here. Let's start by creating a new project. We'll click the button, and you're going to want to select Windows Form Application. Now down here where it says name, let's call it Hello World. Takes a second for it to do all the setup for creating our new application. Now that it's done doing that, it's opened up a whole different view for us to look at. We have our toolbox over here, and don't worry if all of these things look real daunting. We'll be going through all these little things step by step. Over here you have what's called your Solution Explorer. This is where it shows you the outlay of all your files within your particular solution. Don't be too worried about what all that means right now. Just get the idea of where to start looking for things. This is called your Properties window. Everything inside of a Visual Basic program has properties. Like we have a form here. Well, forms have properties from like the text, which up here is the text, says Form 1, to, let's see, what's a good one? Background color. We can change the background color to blue or gray. So let's get started with writing our first program. Let's drag a button over here from the toolbox onto our form. Now if you notice, it put the button on here for us, and we can move it around. Say we want it down here, or we want it up here, and we can have more than one button. But for this program we only need one button. You can also resize it on the form. So let's make it nice and big. There we go, that's nice and big. Now let's make sure the button's highlighted. You can tell by the little dots around the button that that's the item that's selected that we're working with. Let's go down to the text on the properties right here. It says button 1, but we want it to say click me, with a little exclamation point. Notice how it changed. We also want to name our button something more useful besides button 1. When writing code, this will come in helpful later. So we're just going to call it click button. Now click off the button onto the form itself. Notice that the form now has the dots around it. Let's scroll down to the form at the bottom of the form and change the text to say Hello World. Notice that the top changed. Well, this is great. Let's see what happens if we try running our program. To run a program that you just written, there's a little play button. Just click the play button. And Visual Basic will start what's called the debugger. This is your actual program running. Now if we click our button, nothing happens because we didn't tell it to do anything. We just drew our form and made it look good. So let's close this out and let's add some code. To add code to the button when we click it, we just double click the button while it's in design mode, and it'll bring up this screen with lots of code. We're not going to go over what this code means at this time. Right now let's just get your first program in the bag. So type message box dot show, then parentheses, then a quotation mark, then type Hello World, then another quotation mark, and then another parenthesis. Now let's hit play and see what happens. If you click the button, notice another box shows up that says Hello World. And I misspelled hello. Let's go back and fix our little error. Let's called a runtime error. So we'll just highlight it in code, delete the W. Now we can hit play. Let's move this back to where you can see it. Now if we click it, we notice that the bug is gone. If you click OK, the message box goes away. You can go back and forth. Now say you can't get this to close. You can go up and hit stop right here and it'll stop the debugger for you. Well, if you've done all these steps, you've now completed your first Visual Basic programmer. You're now a programmer. Good job. For more questions and details, go to thevisualbasicguy.com.